All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here tonight. I'd like to offer a special welcome and thanks to Colonel Burt. Ma'am, thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I'd also like to welcome General Coates, General Nordhaus, Mr. Jiggets, Colonel Dunn, Colonel and Mrs. Dormany, Chief Bentivania, Chief Jones, Chief Persichetti, and my lovely wife, Suzanne. Thank you for being here tonight. And to all commanders, directors, chief master sergeants, first sergeants, instructors, supervisors, family, friends, co-workers, and of course the men and women we're celebrating here tonight, welcome. I'm Chief Master Sergeant Alec Hall, and it's my privilege to spend the next few minutes sharing with you what I learned during my time with Airman Leadership School 15-7. If you had the chance to see my bio on the program tonight, you'll note that I'm a recent transplant here in Colorado. My family and I arrived here from the Pentagon just a few short months ago, and we were immediately and warmly welcomed into the Front Range family. So immediately and warmly, in fact, that it took only 16 days until Chief Bentivania asked me to be the senior mentor to this Airman leadership class. So this is either a tremendous honor or an early Halloween trick. Thanks, Chief. My time with Class 15-7 started 5 weeks ago with a simple get-to-know-you session. In our first meeting, I got to learn more about their backgrounds and experiences. For instance, I learned that the entire class, with but a single exception, are Staff Sergeants and Staff Sergeant Selects. Every one of them is about to take the exceptional step into leadership. And of course, they found out something about me. I confided in them that no matter how often I get the opportunity to speak in public, I'm never quite comfortable with the experience. As you can imagine, they were a little shocked. I'm sure assuming that chiefs had the inherent gift of gab and that public speaking was part of our secret E9 training. Naturally, they asked, if you're not comfortable talking in front of folks, then how are you able to do so here and now? Well, my answer to that was easy. I try to only talk about the things I know. In fact, I was doing it with them just then, by only talking specifically about myself and my experiences. I could tell that they found some humor in what I had done. I had given the appearance of ease and comfort while only guiding the conversation to what I knew best. It's much harder to get tripped up that way. After I shared this small revelation, you could immediately see the composure of the classroom change. They knew I'd be honest and frank, and they felt they could be the same. Suddenly, everyone was more comfortable in their own skin. Then we began to discuss a variety of topics and challenges we saw in the Air Force in our day-to-day lives. We all gave heartfelt responses, attention and respect to one another. Our dialogue was just gaining momentum when we ran out of time. But as my first hour with this class drew to a close, something else caught my attention. And that was their strength and passion. They were eager, hungry, and certainly not content to hear me recite Air Force doctrine. What I saw in this group of emergent leaders was their strength in all its various forms. The group was at once vocal, compassionate, forward-thinking, analytic, ready to challenge me and to change the status quo. So tonight, I'd like to use that same trick of talking about something I think I know. And that's this idea of strength that I saw in that room. This class, in every interaction that I've had with them, has displayed strength through their servant leadership, through their diversity, and through their commitment to all of us. Let me first describe their strength as servant leadership, and here's what I mean by that. As military members, we're surrounded every day by our call to service. We sign a service statement when we enlist into the armed forces. The American public profusely thanks us daily for our service. We're servant to the officers appointed over us. And even our core values place service before self right into the heart of our beliefs. With that prevalence of service, one could argue that our servant nature is what gives the military its identity. And in fact, according to the Oxford Dictionary, our beloved rank of sergeant is derived from the Latin word servient, meaning attendant or servant. For those of us old enough to remember, the Air Force used to have a rank simply called sergeant. It was an E4 non-commissioned officer. It was a term we used, in other words, it was an airman entrusted to lead others. Precisely what Airman Leadership School has prepared this group to do, lead others. Through this course of instruction, The Air Force has readied them to be sergeants. Servants in those we follow, servants to those we lead, and servants to the people and ideals we love dearly. And tonight, class, you join that brotherhood of sergeants. Servant leadership is ingrained in who we are. All the way back to the start of our own military, where 24 of 41 signers of the Constitution were citizen soldiers and brothers in arms. I had the privilege of going to view the Constitution several times during my assignment in our nation's capital. What struck me most about seeing the Constitution was how this simple parchment was encased in metal, and how that metal was enveloped in stone, yet how that stone spread in all directions, seemingly giving rise to the columns and the dome that surrounded it. The Constitution's prominence in the center of the rotunda of the National Archives made it look as if it alone was the very foundation of the building. And in fact, it was. Maybe not structurally, but spiritually. I stood in front of the very bedrock of the nation. Maybe many of us have never had the opportunity to read the Constitution. Certainly the document in front of me that day was barely legible itself in places. But we sergeants, we swore to give our lives for that piece of paper. It has strength. It spells out everything we're capable of as Americans. Freedoms, rights, powers, duties, responsibilities. That's what we're defending. Class 15-7, by becoming non-commissioned officers, you stand strong in the endless line of sergeants, defending the Constitution against all enemies. With this in mind, we can all acknowledge that what gives strength to the armed forces is in fact the sergeant. A non-commissioned officer charged with the tremendous responsibility of accomplishing the mission, a servant leader, and the honorable service of sergeants has earned America's respect and trust. Sergeants go faster. We go higher, we go farther. We do more and we do better. Every day, sergeants find a way. Excellence in everything we do, no matter what we do. Sergeants don't hide from responsibility. The NCO Corps has no place for lazy or for having a bad day. You are allowed to make mistakes, but you're not allowed to do anything halfway. And I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, halfway was never in the vocabulary for this class. Seeing this was how I discovered my second observation about Class 15-7, their strength through diversity. In the course of getting to know each other, I learned that some came from small towns like McCleary, Washington, Hancock, Michigan, Jefferson, Wisconsin, and Derby, Kansas. Others still came from big cities like Houston, Detroit, New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. I shared with them that I came from a small town in Hawaii. We all acknowledged that we just got thrown together to learn from each other and to lean on each other. But we didn't pick each other. As with any group gathered from differing places, cultures, ages, or attitudes, we had plenty of reasons not to see eye to eye. So of course, I asked them, why did you join the Air Force? But what I was really saying is, why did you join my Air Force? I presumed a bit that as a senior person in the group that I had more claim over the Air Force than they did. And again, their answers were different than mine, forcing me to wonder if this was my Air Force at all. For some, it was education. For others, it was opportunity. For a few, it was to prove something to themselves and others. But in whole, they saw things differently than I did. They challenged my notions of service and sacrifice. They asked tough questions, and they looked for better ways. Certainly unencumbered by my years of always having done it this way. A bit surprising to me, they expected more out of themselves than I did. Hearing them talk about their Air Force, I felt inspired. In this group, it was clear that the Air Force was a place where excellence is a standard and not an accomplishment. I knew right away that this fellowship of airmen had the power to do things that other people didn't have the strength, the vision, or the courage to do. Folks, this was a perfect coming together. Combining their individual efforts and uniqueness, they created something incredible for themselves and the local community. They thrived on the variety and not on the sameness of their fellow airmen. I humbly shared in their collective strength during their community service program, where they selflessly gave more than 260 man-hours towards setting up and executing Nickelodeon's Worldwide Day of Play last month for over 300 community youth. And I'll tell you, it was an amazing sight to behold. I was so inspired by their unanimous efforts that I had to ask but only one more question, and that was, why did they do it? What did they gain for themselves by giving to others? Airman Amy Yeomans answered it best. She said, "We came together as a team so we could learn about each other and grow." It was all of a sudden clear to me. Their strength of diversity had brought the class together in a common purpose. Comprised of many, they operated as one. So class 15-7, I will tell you that no matter where you're from, how you were raised, or what you believe, America has placed its trust in you. Nobody will ever give you a job that they wonder if you can do. We'll give you jobs we expect you to do. For most people, trust is something they build up to. But for this class of sergeants, trust is where you start. Trust in your ability, trust in your commitment, trust in your loyalty, to have somebody's back and know that they have yours, to be somebody's wingman. That's what diversity earns us. Individually, we are different. But together, our strength makes a difference. Which brings me to my final observation with my time with these airmen: their abundant strength through commitment. On the topic of commitment, Super Bowl winning football coach Vince Lombardi once said, "The quality of a person's life is in direct proportion to their commitment to excellence." I interpret this to mean that there's a big difference between wanting and doing. And I'm here to assure you, these airmen are doing it. What are they committed to? Here's what I saw. Together, they are committed to 192 hours of intense instruction over the last 6 weeks. They committed to graduating as a team, 31 strong. Individually, though, I learned that Airman Jonathan Graham is committed to teaching and sharing his love of the outdoors. I learned that Airman Joe Masoglia is committed to hard work and helping the liberated peoples of Iraq and Afghanistan. I learned that Airman Nadia Katana is committed to her faith and assisting others through her fluency in 7 languages. I learned that Airman Joseph Tevis is committed to growing professionally and becoming a trusted expert in his field. I learned that Airman Mariclis Belber is committed to her family and being a positive role model to her children. And that Airman Blar Kierton is committed to his art and his friends. I can think of a lot of ways to define their commitment: patriotism, duty, sacrifice, devotion. Their commitment is that force that pulls you back to strength. It's that bone that runs down your back. Every single one has something they're committed to. Together, they're committed to serving their country and doing their duty. They're committed to family, faith, and success. Quite simply, they're committed to changing the world. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what I learned from class 15-7. Service, excellence, commitment. These are the strengths I found evident in every single one of these airmen. To the men and women of class 15-7, as sergeants, we will all be remembered by the people whose lives we've changed, by the airmen we serve with, and by the values we honor every day. It's because commitment is our standard, diversity is our essence, and service is our tradition. Combined, these strengths breed excellence, and excellence is not what you reach for. Excellence is the foundation you stand on to reach higher. No one here questions your strength. Instead, we count on it. No one doubts your commitment. We depend on it. You're already better than you were at the start of this journey. It's your privilege to serve this country to the best of your abilities, but it's your duty to serve beyond those abilities. So I'll simply leave you with these 2 questions, class. What kind of sergeant do you want to be? What kind of sergeant does your country deserve? Thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an honor to be with you here tonight.